remember what we've been doing.
Anything particular that stands out or sticks out for you as like an aha moment?
So a lot of it has been like all of the programs and applications that are available to us through KW and how they work and how they all sync together.
You got to give yourself, like I was telling Luke, give himself time to figure out the counter. You guys got to give yourself time to manage the system, right?
Yeah.
Nothing complicated here. It's just a lot. And it's a little overwhelming, but don't be intimidated by it. You guys, at the end of this week, obviously, are going to have the skill sets to go back and know where to go to look up information and who to talk to. And the most important thing when you're focused on lead generation is just build that database. Build the database, share the app, and talk to consumers. Right? The business will follow, and then you'll start building out the other things that are important, which today, when we're talking about opportunities, your digital whiteboard, right? So that's something that as you start to engage with your consumers, right, talking about doing something in real estate, whether it's today, tomorrow, 6 months, 12, 24 months out, what are you going to do and how are you going to track your communication with them to ultimately get them to the closing table? So that's what we're going to discuss today. Opportunities, and we're going to touch a little bit on the compliance, which will carry over tomorrow into the DocuSign class that Scotty's going to lead. So I appreciate you guys showing up, and this will be the last time I say it, but for those of you that aren't driving, Mark, Caitlin, Marquita, Rebecca, if you could turn on your cameras, that would be great. That's how everybody learns better and I can track engagement. Thank you. We are recording. Everything's posted to the YouTube channel. At this point in the week, you guys should have received a number of emails from us with the slide decks and the links and all those things. You should have everything you need, and we'll continue to post those. If you're missing something, email me and let me know that you didn't get an email. There might be something with the email address that we had on file for you when you registered for the class, because that's what we send everything out to those email addresses. So if you haven't gotten anything from us this week, then there's an issue there. So email daviddonaldson@kw.com and say you haven't gotten the updates for the Jumpstart to Command class. And we'll make sure that you get those, because I want everybody to have everything that they need. All right, so today, as I mentioned, we are going to jump into opportunities. Now, I am not at my home office today, so I will do my best. I only have my single screen. I'm spoiled with 3 screens at my home office. Today, I only have 1. So I will do the best that I can for you. Hope you all don't mind. All right. So we're going to jump in. I'm share my screen here. Let's get started with the slide deck. No other questions or any reviews from anything else that happened leading up today? No questions, action step, clarity, anything you guys need before we move forward? Okay, then I will share my screen and we will get rocking. Awesome. All right. Eunice, you have a question? Okay. All right. So today we're jump starting command. We are recording, which is awesome. Cameras on. Opportunities. Command. All right. So when I talk about command, I talk about it being your digital whiteboard, right? And the question is, when do you create an opportunity? You know, what is an opportunity? So when we talk about opportunities, it's the ability to do business with somebody. So and I'm not even talking about, are you under contract with somebody? Because there are conversations that take place long before that. You know, maybe you met somebody in an open house. Maybe you met them in line at the grocery store. Maybe you exchange cards or contact information. Very preliminary things. But when you actually have a substantive conversation with somebody, when you start to understand what are they looking to do, buy, sell, or invest, and they understand who you are, you now have an opportunity, okay, to do something with them. It's just a matter of time before they do something, and you have to be deliberate and purposeful in your communication to get them to the point that they end up working with you. And that's a skill set, and there's follow-up, and there's lots of things that tend to have to happen. But the moment, right, so if you meet them in an open house, you meet them at the line of the grocery store, when you get their contact information, what do? What's the first thing you do when you get somebody's contact information? Nobody knows. Stay 4 people.
So you put it in the database? I
Put it
typed it
in
in
the
the chat.
database. We're not making these things complicated. Come on now, don't overthink these things. You get them in the database, right? If you've got their contact information, you should have also shared your mobile app with them, right? This is a very fundamental first thing you do. You get somebody's information, you put them in your data bank, right? Not on a sticky note, not on a piece of paper that's folded up with a piece of chewing gum stuck to it on the inside of your pocket. You laughing at me, but you know what I'm talking about, right? No sticky notes hanging off your computer, right? I know some people write things in pencil on their computer, little desktop, right? Put them in your data bank the moment you get them, because if you don't, what's going to happen? I don't put
You're
them
gonna
right.
forget.
With that,
You could
You'll
potentially,
forget.
you're going to forget and they're going to go work with somebody else. There's competition out there, people. If you don't put them in your database, I will. It's just that simple. If you don't put them in your database, if you don't follow them up, somebody else will. There's no magic bullet here, guys. It's a numbers game. You talk to people, you follow up with people, you win. Not all the time, but more times if you don't. All right, so you meet somebody, you put them in your database. So you have a contact now, right? You have established relationship, you're talking to them. Then you find out, you talk to them, you know that they're going to do something at some point in time. When you have a substantive conversation, you now create an opportunity. And for those of you that have been in business a little while, or you've walked around your office, you see people with whiteboards, right? They have whiteboards. Listings and buyers' names are on those whiteboards. Addresses might be, price point might be, timeframes might be, active transactions might be. Those are all part of the process. Where most agents miss the boat and they lose out on business is they don't track the things that happen before they have an active contract, whether it's for a buyer or a seller. Okay, because there's things that happen. You have to cultivate a relationship. You have to go have an appointment to meet somebody. And those things happen long before you ever actively have an active contract. And I want you to be clear on this. And again, remember, I always like to disclose that we're recording these things. Are you aware? I'm going to say you do aware. Are you aware? And if you're not, let's kind of talk about this for a quick second. Are you aware that if you take somebody out to look at property, you need to have a buyer broker agreement in place, signed? Is there any confusion on that? Is there any concerns on that?
No,
Okay, let me ask it this way. If I take somebody out to look at property and I do not have a buyer broker agreement in place, who do I represent?
nobody.
You actually represent the seller.
Oh.
Think about that.
Seller.
Yeah.
Right.
So, if I take somebody out and show them a house without a buyer broker agreement, they could write, even though I may be procuring cars, people try to make that argument. They could go home, they could call their brother, be like, hey, this guy I met at an open house, he took me to show this other house. I loved it. Would you write the offer for me? Do those things happen? Sure they do. Don't let it happen to you. And it will, right? You're going to make an assumption. Remember when I talked about Monday, what happens when you assume, right? You're going to make an assumption that somebody's going to work with you. Friends, families, or somebody you haven't met. You're going to get excited. You're going to be scared to ask them for a commitment. And you're going to get a bite in the butt. Be that person. I've been that person. I've made that mistake. That's why I can talk about these things passionately, because I've made those mistakes. Don't make my mistakes. Learn from my mistakes. Okay? You put somebody in a car to go look at property, you have a buyer broker agreement in place. It's the law. Fair? Got to protect your assets. All right. So before that, though, you're cultivating that relationship. You know that they want to do. They want to buy. They want to sell. They want to move. They want to invest. And you're talking to them and you're engaging with them. That's called cultivation, right? You're establishing trust. So the moment you have that type of understanding that they want to do something at some point in time, you're going to create an opportunity. All right, so let's talk about what that looks like. I'm going to give you guys a little tour. So on the left-hand side, we've got these two hands shaking hands, right? That's the opportunity dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Now, on the opportunity dashboard, you're going to see a couple of things. You're going to see listings, you're going to see buyers, you're going to see leases. And this is basically a summary page. What's going on this month? Right? It's a month at a glance view of what's happening. You see listings, you see buyers, you see leases. At the bottom of the page, I see ratios, which is the percentages of listings and buyers that I have, activity per month, and what's closing this particular month. Everything kind of updates on this page for you. And to the right, you see a GCI column. Who knows what GCI is?
Gross commission income.
Boom! Gross commission income, right? That's potential dollars that could be in your pocket, right? So when we talk about gross commission income as potential income and probable income. So potential income is the total commission of all listing opportunities. So everything that's in here has a dollar amount associated with, right? A cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, and close. They all have a dollar amount associated with it. Probable income is an adjusted commission based on each stage's probability to close. Well, that really means not a whole lot, right? Because there are $2 amounts you get paid when it comes to working with a consumer. You either get paid 100% of the commission that you earn because they closed, or you get $0 because the transaction didn't close and they didn't do any business with you, right? You understand that, right? Either they close and you get paid, or you do work all the way along sometimes and you don't get paid. Is that fair? You guys understand that, right? There's no in between.
Yes.
All right. However, in our system, you're going to see that stages are weighted to a degree as far as probability to close. Okay. If I just met somebody and I put them in an opportunity, we talked about doing business, I might have a 5 to a 15% chance that they're actually going to work with me and close. The further we get along in our relationship, those percentages go up. And everybody's percentages change a little bit depending on who they are and where they are and how good you are at closing those people. Right? So it's kind of a game. So at the beginning, if I said, hey, I met a person, I'm going to spend $500,000 on the house, that's potential $15,000 in GCI at the end of the day, right? But if I just met them today, I might have a 5% chance of earning that $15,000 in commission. Now, once I put them under contract to be a buyer, maybe I've got a 50% chance that I'm going to get them to the closing table. Once I actually write a contract, I probably have an 80% chance that they're going to close. Once they're under contract, probably 90% or more that transaction is going to close. So it's the percentages earned in a gaming type of world of where I'm at. So GCI and potential income will never actually meet at the end of the day, because you're going to have multiple opportunities and there's always going to be a gap, but you're always going to be trying to close that gap. So that's the difference between GCI and potential income. I confuse you guys on any of that?
No.
All right, excellent. Now, the other thing they need to know is that on this screen, my screen has locked up and frozen on me. My mouse is not working. Give me 1 second. I'm going to try to stop sharing for a second.
Does this link to the contacts in a way to like remind you to stay in touch with those people?
So the answer is yes, if you leverage the system that way.
Okay.
So those become tasks, right? So if I have a cultivation process that say, hey, I should call this person once a week or email them or text them or whatever you determine you want to do, and you build that into your system. I'm going to give you a checklist to build into your system.
Okay.
It'll send you a notice that, hey, you should call them or you should email them. But I'll ask you this. So if you get one of those tasks and it tells you should call them, where are you going to get that task? Where do you think it'll show up?
Ooh.
Should be in the dashboard, right?
It'll be on the dashboard, but what did we download on Monday that I showed you guys that would be with you at all times?
Out of the app.
The app.
Yeah.
The app, right? So everything you need to do on a daily basis will show up on your app. That's why it's so important to utilize that app in your business, okay? So great questions. All right, so here we go. So we've got potential listings, okay, for potential income of 325 and probable income based off of where they are in the transactions of $85,000. Everything now broken out by buyers, sellers, leases, and whatnot. So that's what you see on this homepage. You do see the ability to create an opportunity, which we're going to do here in a minute. I want you to ignore the dot loop functionality. You guys aren't using that, okay? Now I'm just going to go ahead and click into one of these stages or phases, right? That's what these are called. There are 5 phases: cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, and closed. And those will never change. Everybody has those. You all should see that on your dashboard. However, when you go into one of these phases, you will see stages. Okay. Now you all have a certain set of stages. Okay. Now at the end of today, part of the action steps will be to build out stages and checklists in your system. And I'm going to send those to you to start with, because a lot of you, especially if you're new, don't know what you don't know about what you should do next during a transaction. So I have a really great starter set for you, and you can manipulate and change based off of what you meet and you learn through your productivity coaches or what have you. But so I clicked on cultivate. So that's where I'm at. I'm in the cultivate phase. And what I see are 3 stages: watch, nurture, and hot. And under each of those stages are different transactions that I'm working on. Now I have a lot of dummy data in here. So I don't think I actually have this much business going on right now, because I don't. I can move people along through the transaction, right? Watch means, hey, I just met you. We talked about doing something, and let's kind of get started, right? Then, okay, I'm going to watch. You're starting to engage. You're looking at properties. So now maybe I'm going to nurture the relationship. I'm going to call you. I'm going to text you, just kind of see what's happening. I'm going to let you know what's going on with the market. We're talking. Okay. Now you're starting to actively look now. All right. You're hot. You're looking at properties every day, right? You're liking properties on your mobile app. I can see that what you're doing. You're focusing down in the neighborhood. Awesome. You're hot. Right? You're moving. Right? You see how I just drug those along? We just move those to each stage, right?
Can you do that one more time, please?
See how I have these 6 little dots right here?
Yep.
Just drag, grab and drag.
Okay.
Right. Now, every time I move those from stage to stage, you'll see what changes is this little checklist down here at the bottom. See how it went from 2 to 9? See that? Went from 2 to 9, because what I build in the system is that there are things that I do during the watch phase. There are things that I do during the nurture phase. And that checklist changes depending on where I am in the transaction. Pretty cool, right? Now, you see here at the end of the cultivate phase is hot and it ends. So the next thing to move them from hot is to an appointment. Once I book an appointment, I'll take that tile, right? I was working on beta test here, and I'll just drag it up to appointment and drop her in there. Sometimes they bounce on me. There we go. So now I'm still in the cultivate screen, but beta test is now gone because I moved it to appointment. I jump to appointment. Where'd beta go? There, I guess I put her under active. Things don't always move the way that I want them to. That's why I like this board view, list view. List view is a little bit easier. You can toggle between list view and board view. Where did I put beta? There we go. There she is. All right, so now that particular opportunity has details. I'm sorry, I don't want to jump there. I want to go back. I can't get beta to move, can I? She doesn't want to be my friend today. That happens. Where'd she jump to? All right, so I'm just going to open this one. If you ever have that kind of problems, go into edit, and you could actually just go into the stage. So drag and drop is nice, but depending on the screens that you're on, sometimes it can be not as easy as it should be. So I'll just go in and edit the details. We'll talk more about that details in the section, but there's always a way to manipulate and move things around. All right, so I put them under the appointment phase and come back to that. There we go, beta test. And remember, I just toggled off a board view or list view. You can determine which one you like. Sometimes it's easier to drag and drop north and south for people versus tile view, which is going this way. No right or wrong, it's your choice. But also what I want to show you what has changed of these percentages up here, right? On the cultivate stage, remember they were like 5%, 10%. Now I'm at the appointment phase, so they kind of jumped to 25%. So that's me understanding that, hey, as I move these people along, my percentages change. Now you could change your percentages as you get better about your system and knowing your numbers. You'll be able to update your own percentages. And in the future, the system will get wise to you and starts suggesting percentages based off of your track history. That only starts to happen after about 50 transactions of you working them through the system completely. So you have to give it time. Now, what I told you in the beginning was these phases are locked, but the stages you can custom create and the checklist you can custom create. So I go up to the upper right-hand side here. I'm in appointment. If I hit edit stages, I'll see the stages that are specific to the appointment. And to the right of that, I'm going to see the checklists that are assigned with each of those stages. If I go into the checklist, I'll see that they're there because I built them. And you just went in by build. Right there. Save. Now there's this client update, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. And for those of you that are new to the business, when you're working with a consumer and you're doing things for them, traditionally what you will do is you send them an email and say, hey, I did this for you today. And a perfect example is that is when you're actively under contract with somebody and say, I took a listing, I'll probably have to order photography. I'll have to order videography. I might have to order the stage. I'm going to have to order sign up. I might have to order Mr. Utility to come out and look at the property, right? They may have to call the movers. They may have to call carpet cleaners. They may have to call a painter. Whatever those things are, you can check and say, hey, these are client updates. So they need to know when these things were done, or you need to know when these things were done. So the system will send out an automatic email each day that said, hey, we did these things for you today, or we need you to do these things today. So that's what client update means. And it saves you time of having to create an email. So it's a nice little touch. I'll show you how to set that. All right. So that is building out your checklist. Now remember, I'm going to give you stages and checklists in a spreadsheet. Okay. So at the end of today, you're going to get a checklist and you're going to go in and you're going to go into each of these phases for listings and buyers, and you're going to build out stages and checklists the way that I just did it. But I'm going to give you the checklist. All right. Tosh is like, what? What are you going to give me? What am I going to do? That's right. This is going to be part of your action steps today. Okay. I'm going to give you a checklist. Okay. And then you're going to come back into your dashboard. Okay. You're going to start with Cultivate. You're going to start with Cultivate for listings. You're going to come into these edit stages and you're going to add these stages. And then you're going to come in and you're going to add checklists for each of these stages. Just by coming in and click add stage, type the name, right? There'll be a probability percentage that you can add there, right? And then you can add the checklist items and start typing them in. That's how you build them from scratch. And you're going to have to do that because there is no default checklist in the system other than I'm going to give you one to build.
So when they're in there, are they in there for us, or they're not designated to one particular person at that moment? You designate them to the people. Is that?
That's
how
correct. So when
okay.
you go into this edit stages, you're building your master checklist,
Okay.
right? And then every time you add an opportunity, which we haven't showed you how to create yet, but when you add an opportunity, those checklists will default to that particular transaction.
Okay.
And they're there for every single one. Now, keep in mind that on some transactions, that checklist may apply for that person or not, or you may need to add something specific to that transaction, right? So what you can do is when you have an active transaction, you'll see that that checklist is there. You can go in and edit this checklist, right? Say they were done, right? Or delete the step because maybe it doesn't apply for this transaction, okay?
Mhm.
Or I can add a checklist item for this transaction. And these changes at the transaction level will not manipulate the master template. They only affect that particular opportunity.
Okay,
That's nice, right?
yeah.
Awesome. All right. So now that you know what the dashboard is telling you, okay, here's all my active transactions that potentially close this month. Here's my potential income. I know that I can move things around. I know we haven't created one yet. That's okay. What I want to be clear is that I told you this was a month at a glance. Remember with Keller Williams, and maybe you're not aware of this yet, but we close our books every single month. We don't just close at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, we close them every single month. So when your transactions close in a particular month, so it's the month of July, if I had something closing or closed this month and I move it to this closed column, it'll show there. Once we pass the end of the month and I move into September, this close will zero out and all my closed transactions will disappear from this screen, right? Because it's no longer in the current month. Does that make sense? Now,
Yeah.
I get the call a lot. Hey, where are my closings? I had closings this year and there's no closings here. I know, and I understand. These are for the month. So what you have is this other category at the top called all opportunities. So once you've closed your opportunities and the month has rolled over, all your opportunities show up in this all opportunity display. What does this look like for you guys? If you were in somebody's office, you were in your office, what would this look like?
I'd be confused.
You'd be confused. Does this look like this would be hanging? Does this look like a whiteboard?
You said like a whiteboard?
Yeah. So if you're
Yeah,
in
yeah.
agent's office, right? Is this what you would see? The
Yeah.
name, address, the type, listing or buyer, where they at, how much, commission, close dates. Those are things that you would typically see on a whiteboard hanging on the wall in an office, right?
Mhm.
So this is when I told you that the opportunity is your digital whiteboard, it's right here. So I don't need to be writing these things on the wall. Right? When you have success in business, maybe you have a TV in the wall, and this is streaming to your TV. That's what I talk to a lot of people about. There's a lot more and more teams starting to do that. So you don't have to write things on a whiteboard. So what you'll see here is like, here's everything I've got going on. And it functions similarly to the contacts. You remember day 2 when we talked about contacts and we talked about smart views and filters? We can do that here. I can filter these out by buyers or sellers. I can filter these out by different phases that they're in. I can filter them out to did they close or when did they close? And you can create those smart views. Show me all my closings. Show me all my listings. Right? Show me all my buyers. So everything is right here on this page for you. So that's the difference between month at a glance, which is, are they in these phases and have they closed? And once that they have closed and everything else that's happening, they're under all opportunities. That's one of the bigger questions I get from most people. Hey, I have my closings. Where did they go? I can't find them. They're right here. All right. So before we jump into creating an opportunity, who's got questions around these things? Around what you're looking at on this page?
I don't have any questions on that just yet, but I know that this is like learning a whole new program. It's very overwhelming, but I think it's good if people just get in and play with it. I've taken a lot of trainings on it and everything is coming together the more and more that I take another training on it. Sometimes I take the same training just to kind of get familiar with it. So it might not make sense now, but I feel like it will here soon.
Yeah, look, I appreciate you sharing that, and you're 100% correct. I will tell you that I sit in other instructors' classes on these subjects that I teach and I feel pretty masterful on because I always learn something new, right? The way that I present and teach may be different than the way that Luke might teach it when he does it, right? And at the same time, you're also right that trial and error will save you time. And there's no reason you can't go in here and build some test accounts and share them and move them and play with them. And I highly encourage you to do that, because if you wait for business to do anything, it's going to take you a long time. You're going to be panic stricken because you're going to be under a time crunch. So I highly recommend what Melissa said is go ahead and play with it. Create some opportunities, move them around, check out your checklist, share things back and forth with people. And when you go through your contracts class, write contracts to share back and forth. Use the system as your test so you get comfortable with it. So thanks for verbalizing, Melissa. You're 100% right.
No problem.
All right, so now we're going to create an opportunity. Now, I can create an opportunity directly on this page. That's in the upper right-hand side. I can click create opportunity, and it's going to give me my pop-up screen. Now, what I'm going to show you is that traditionally what you would probably do is create, I have found that I traditionally create the opportunity from the contacts card. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the contacts card because that's usually what I do. And you'll see that they're very similar. So I'm going to X out of this. I'm going to go back to my contacts. I'm just going to go to my data bank. Just going to look here. Somebody asked what the name of the app. So the Command apps. You want to go into your app store and you want to download Command Mobile. That's what you want to download. Command Mobile was the app I was referring to earlier. All right, so I'm just going to bring up one of my contacts here, which is always my son when I'm doing test cases. All right, so this is his card. This is his timeline. This is all the activity that we've been doing. And across the top, you see opportunities here. To click on opportunities, it'll show all the opportunities that I have open for this particular client. Now, it's important to know, people will get confused on this fact. I think how to phrase this, because I was just spin it a little bit differently. Okay. Every opportunity represents a single transaction. All right, so if you represent a buyer, that's an opportunity. If that buyer also needs to sell his house or their house, if they need to sell and buy, those are two opportunities because they are two transactions. It's a buy opportunity and a sell opportunity. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, when I represent a buyer, I might have to write multiple contracts before I ratify a contract. Does that make sense? Right? Very seldom do you write one contract in this market and get her done. So that is still the same opportunity to represent a buyer for a purchase. It just has multiple contracts that were written. I get a lot of calls from new agents where they start creating a new opportunity every time they write a contract. So I'm going to give you guys clarity. One opportunity per transaction for each transaction. So if they're selling, it's an opportunity. If they're buying, it's an opportunity. If it's an investor and they're buying multiple properties, each purchase is an opportunity. They're buying 3 investment properties. Those are 3 different opportunities.
Okay. I have a question. I don't want to throw anybody off or confuse anybody, but since I'm like starting to understand it a little bit more, so I've only been doing this 4 months and I have a listing, and it goes live coming up here in a couple weeks, but I haven't done the opportunity in Command yet because I'm still learning the system. And I know that once it goes live, we have to upload it into Command. So at what point, like I could have already created the opportunity.
You absolutely should have. And actually, I'm going to tell you this. If it's about to go live, you're telling me you already have a signed contract with the seller, right?
Yes.
That means it should already be in Command and you're not in compliance for your market center.
Okay. All right. Well, I've been talking to them, so, but
I understand. But that's the mindset, right?
Yeah.
As you are building that relationship, that's why I say you start to cultivate. You don't wait till active. And that's what a lot of people just do. They actually wait till they're.
Yeah. Well, it's like
Um,
I'm still learning everything, and then I come into it and I'm like, okay, well, now I'm learning this, and I probably should have already done that. But it's like you kind of
Yeah,
your head
totally.
starts spinning.
Yep. And that's why you go to these classes, it's why you watch these classes, with your multiple classes. And that's why you should, not every market center does, but you should have a mentor or a PC coach or working with a market center tech center as you're stepping through these things, and they should be bringing you back to them.
Oh,
That's
okay. Well, I'll be at my market center after this, so I'll have them help me with it.
absolutely. That's
Thank
what you want to go. Yeah, absolutely. Not a problem. So that's where there's a lot of confusion for a lot of people. It's like, all right, listing is a listing. That's pretty straightforward. But when we're with a buyer, they fall into that. They think every time they write a contract, they have to create an opportunity. And that's where it gets messy, because that's just not the case. We'll touch on that a little bit more tomorrow in DocuSign, but opportunities are transaction-based. It's a one-to-one relationship. Each opportunity might have multiple contracts that were written or received from representing a seller. We good
Thank
there?
Yep, I'm learning.
Great. All right, so now let's create an opportunity. And by all means, if you're doing this at home, as you should be, create one, right? Go on your contacts. Create opportunity. So click the little plus button. Like I said, you can do it at the contact card, or you could do it at the opportunity level dashboard. The only difference between doing it at the contact card or doing it from the opportunities dashboard is that if you're on the opportunity card, the client defaults here because it knows that you're working for this person. If you're on the opportunity dashboard, there will be nothing here, and you would just have to type in their name. They do have to be in your database first, right? So that's why I say, if you're writing a contract or an opportunity for somebody that's not in your database, you have to put them in your database first. That is a priority one. They have to be in your database, okay? So now I'm going to give you something else that's important. This opportunity type shows up. Now, agents that are in a rush, and by in a rush, I mean agents that haven't done their paperwork and they either are closing today or have closed. Unfortunately, that does happen. They're out of compliance and they're not going to get paid. They do things in a rush to get paid. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that happens all the time. And agents get very frustrated and upset when it comes to their money. But I don't have a lot of compassion for somebody that waits to the absolute end to turn in paperwork. This opportunity type has to be chosen properly. Listing, buyer, landlord, tenant. If you come in here and you choose listing, okay, you're going to have an issue. You're going to have to start all over again. You can't change the opportunity type once it's created. I can delete it and start over. I cannot go back in and change the opportunity type. So if it's a listing, I choose listing. If it's a buyer, I choose buyer. Please take your time and choose appropriately. Now, if you're on a team, okay, your team will default here, right? And then you will be the owner here. If there's a co-buyer, you can add them here. The opportunity name will default to their name -listing -buyer -landlord -tenant. If you're representing a seller, what I choose to do, instead of just putting seller here, I actually like to put the property address in there, right? Because that's not going to change and it makes it easier to search for things later. I will always put the, I'll put the opportunity name, not as their name, but as the property address. Okay, that's just a best practice. And if I'm representing a buyer, once I've ratified, which means I'm under contract, then I'll change the opportunity name to the property address. It's the way I do business. Not everybody does things the way that I do it. I just like to share best practices with you. Now there are tags here. Okay, you remember there are tags at the contact level. Well, you also going to have tags at the opportunity level. And what I have, the way that I track things is I put them by the title companies I use, or the mortgage companies that I use, or are they FHA, or are they commercial, or are they VA. I'll like to tag those things. Was there a referral involved? So I can go back and later filter my business and understand where did they come from, what type of buyer were they. Those things will matter for you later on. So I like to use tags around that. Now, in the checklist I'm going to give you later today, I'm also going to send you a list of tags to build for your opportunities. So it's just a matter of going in and building tags. Just like you build tags on Tuesdays for contacts, there's a toggle at the top of that page where you can build tags for opportunities. Estimated close date, right? When do I think they're going to purchase, right? We're just starting out, right? So I think this will close. It's a shot in the dark, end of September. Or I could just give it a time frame. You don't have to do both. You could do one or the other, right? I said I'm doing a buyer, so what's their budget, right? I'm going to say maybe it's 500,000. Commission rate. Well, what's the standard commission rate in the field? Now, everybody likes to say I get paid 3%, but you have to be real to yourself. Are you getting 3% 100% of the time? No. You're probably closer to 2.75 or maybe 2.5, depending on where you're at. This doesn't mean that's what you're going to get paid. This is the math, right? You're forecasting transactional data. So if I know that the prices on the street vary between 2.5, 2.75, and 3, I'm gonna put a blended average of commission rate of 2.75 in here. Don't worry about it. It's just you trying to be accurate with yourself in building your pipeline. And then what phase are they going to go in? Well, as Melissa just said, she has a listing that's active because she has a signed contract. If it's not, remember, active means signed contract. Active doesn't necessarily refer to that it's in the MLS. Those are two different things. It may be a coming soon, but as far as contract goes, it's active. But you have cultivate, appointment, and active. I can't put it under contract. I can't put it closed to start. You have to put in one of these 3 phases. I'm going to encourage you that you don't wait to the active phase. Start putting your transactions in the cultivate phase the moment you have that substantive conversation. Okay. Or sometimes you will jump right to the appointment. I get that. Met somebody, I got a phone call, we scheduled an appointment. So maybe they jump right to that phase. Okay, I can buy that. Was it scheduled? Are you in the process of scheduling an appointment? Did you keep the appointment? Did you already have it? Okay, so on this particular say, I'm just saying I have an appointment and it is scheduled. So that's the phase and stage that I'm going to drop this person into. Before I go ahead, is there any questions on filling this out? Straightforward, filling in the boxes, right? Having clarity for yourself. All right, awesome. Once I click create, now remember, I'm still in the card for the consumer. So under that timeline, I'm going to see that on August 4th, I created this opportunity for them. So I could actually click right into this. And when I click on this, it'll jump me into the detail section. And it also is going to show up on the opportunities page, right? If I go there, I'm going to see under a buyer appointment stage, right? I will see that that transaction is now living under this phase. That's what happens. Okay. Now, as this is taking forever to load because I'm streaming, give that a second to load. All right. So far, we understand that we have our contacts, what has to be in the system, right? They have to have a contact. They have to exist in order for me to create an opportunity. Once I create the opportunity, I give it as much information as I can. Right? If it's cultivating, I know basic parameters. What are they willing to pay? What are they looking to pay? Maybe when they want to purchase. Those things are starting to come together for me. Now, every time you meet with somebody or talk with somebody, you're going to want to update the information about the transaction. You're getting further and further along. So you're going to continuously update the details in the transaction. So that's what we're going to do next. All right, I'm slowly moving along here. And then a little wireless hole here in this office, I think. All right. So while that's loading up, any questions so far in creating the opportunity?
No.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm going to try to stop my share for a minute and see if I can refresh this. Tech Happens. Yesterday I wore my Tech Happens t-shirt. I should have worn it today. All right, let's see if this opens up for me. Oh, she's laggy. All right, so in the detail section, so earlier in the week, we talked about goal setting. You guys covered goal setting earlier in the week, right? Did you guys said, okay, so when we talk about goal setting, right? So part of the goal setting is tracking your opportunities in your appointments. When you schedule an appointment in the system, so you see now that I am in the detail section for that opportunity that I just created, these pencils allow us to edit details, okay? So you can always go in there and update that information. When I schedule an appointment, I've got to put a date in here, okay? When am I having the appointment? When was it scheduled? Okay, scheduled for the 4th. Or what? All right, I scheduled it today, but the appointment is actually on the 9th. That's what this is, the two different things it's asking me here. When did you schedule an appointment and what's the appointment date? Once you put this information in, then the system tracks that you have an appointment and you're meeting your appointment goals. Okay, you can update if you wrote a contract, you know, what day did the contract get ratified? Right, and what was the contract date? Because those are two different things. And what's the closing date? The budget might change. You can update there, right? Once you, if you know that your commission rate, then once you ratified it is actually 3%, you can edit that here. So that my commission now is actually going to be 3%. How are they purchasing? They're actually going to purchase via a conventional loan. I see I have a hand raised.
Yes, I had my hand raised. I can't see your screen.
You guys aren't seeing the screen?
I'm not.
I
Is
see it.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it as well.
All right. I'll just refresh. Are you seeing it now, Tosh?
No, it says that you're starting to share your screen, and it's clocking.
And so that's just your internet on your side. If everybody else is seeing it, unfortunately, you're having some similar issues that I'm having, is that it's just slow on loading up on your side.
Okay.
So let me go back into that opportunities, that details. So that's filling out the details. So every time you fill out more details, right, you want to give it information. Now, on that details page, you'll see address. So if you, once you have a property address, you can put that in there. Now, the cool thing is that once you write a contract, and we're going to talk about writing contracts tomorrow, but once you write a contract, you can actually attach the listing, right, to the opportunities. This is a buyer. Oh, I don't want to check the details. Right, I'll be able to attach a listing once I'm active. So like if I just want, if I went in here and I updated this, instead of appointment list, I'll say that I am now active and they're searching. Okay, I can change this opportunity. And now what will happen is I send this back on this dashboard here. He's now going to show up under this active tile. And if I go into that active tile, and I see this is the one right here. Now, if I now say that he's now under contract, I missed my bigger screens. I'm just going to do it in there. You see that as I'm updating these things, right? This says synced, all this information is showing up in here. That means if I had had an opportunity, it would show up in the DocuSign account. Pretty cool. I'm missing one thing. I'm not sure what I'm missing here. I should be able to attach my listings right here. I don't know why that's not syncing. We'll come back to that. All right, so we have these details. Okay, you've got the property details. Syncing has to do with DocuSign. Once we create a DocuSign link, which I will show you how to create in a second, but we're going to talk through DocuSign tomorrow. Property address information is over here. So if I identify the property to purchase, then I would put that in here. And I would also be able to connect that through the listing, but I think it has to do with my internet connection right now that it's not showing up. Time frame, details, budget, price point, potential commission, that all shows up on my tile, right? If I wanted to collect, and I'm not going to jump into this, but I'm going to tell you what these things are. Earnest Deposit is a third-party company that is at your disposal to have a consumer wire money to a title company, because we don't handle checks. Check with your market center, see if you guys do business that way. So that's something I really get involved with. Keller Covered is an invitation for you. You can send this to your consumer for them to get a quote on insurance. It's a good value add for them. The insurance is good. Actually, I personally used it. Okay, so you have the ability to send them a company to potentially through Keller Williams to get a discount on insurance. So that's what you're seeing here. And Porch is a third-party thing that you can pay for to utilize, that once I have home inspections done, I can get costs or bids for repairs. So I can upload a report, say what I need to get repaired, and you can get quotes. I don't jump into these things because they take too much time, but I want you to know what those are, get familiar with them, and talk to people back in your market center, see if they're actually utilizing them. Okay. Now, if I walk across the top here, okay, you'll see that there are checklists, if there was something I needed to do here, and then client updates. Client updates are done per transaction. Do you remember at the beginning when I talked about the checklist and I said some things are checklist items are client updates? That means, do I want the update to go out to my consumer, and when do I want it to go and out? There's no way to turn it on as a default. I have to turn it on manually for each transaction, okay? But basically, when I turn it on and I say, hey, it's 7 o'clock, now this is the time I set, 7 o'clock, I want an email to go out to the consumer, okay, from me, okay, telling them what I did today that they need to know about. And when that goes out, and I'll show you what it looks like, here's a preview of that. This is what that email looks like. This is what they would receive, okay? They would receive a template with your logo and your contact information. An email saying, here's things we're checking off that we did for you today. Now, this picture will actually be the picture of the house. We'll pull the picture of the house from the listing. So if you have a listing and it's in the system, in the MLS, we'll pull the first picture from the MLS and put that there. If you're working with a buyer and we've synced that purchase transaction, it'll pull the first picture from the MLS. If you're working with a buyer and no property has yet been identified because you haven't ratified something, no picture will show up on this page. It pull your checklist item, said this is what we did to you today, and it just kind of sends out this nice looking email for them, just let them know that you're working on things on the back end for them. So that's the client update. All right, so that's now turned on. Now, as I scroll along the right-hand side, I see documents. Now, before I get there, I want to talk about lost opportunity. Okay. At the end of the day, you have to know your numbers. You have to know your conversion rates. For some reason, agents are scared of the truth. Knowing is half the battle. I mean, G.I. Joe people out there, knowing is half the battle. Okay, anyway. A lost opportunity is an opportunity that I created, but now that person or people are no longer going to go through with the transaction. And you might lose an opportunity during the cultivate phase. You might lose an opportunity during the appointment phase. You may lose it during the active phase. You might lose it during the active under contract. You're not going to lose it after it's closed, but you could lose an opportunity at any point in time. So you have to tell the system, I lost this opportunity, right? So if you went through the process of creating an opportunity in the cultivate stage, because let's say Luke and I had a substantial conversation around real estate. We haven't met yet, but we've had a detailed conversation. He told me that he's buying in the next 6 months and he wants to work with me, and we're going to talk. I'm going to set up time. He's going to look at properties. Great. We're going round and round. I'm sending him things. We haven't yet met yet, but we're talking, and he's actively using my mobile app. So I created an opportunity. Maybe month 3 gets here, and I'm like, you know what, Luke, it's probably a really good time for us to sit down and talk, go through the whole process. Maybe get you, let's get you qualified through just tech underwriting with my lender, just so we can, when we find the right house, we're just ready to go. And then Luke drops a bomb on me. Dave, I just got my license. So I'm actually going to represent myself. I'm going to congratulate Luke. I'm going to tuck tail. And I just lost an opportunity to work with Luke. Right? So now I mark that as a lost opportunity. It's another example that could happen. Right? Benita is a good friend of mine. And we're talking. She wants to buy a property. And then one weekend, she walks into a builder and signs to buy a new construction at a builder property. She went in without me. She just cut me out of the transaction. And maybe I didn't have a buyer broker agreement in place yet. I now just lost an opportunity to represent Anita. Fair? There are all types of reasons that people stop working with it. Their cousin is now licensed. And those things happen. Friends, families, whatever. But be true to yourself. If you went through the process of creating an opportunity and they're no longer going to purchase, mark it as lost. Now, they pump the brakes. Maybe you go back to cultivate. If they say, you know what, I'm not going to buy now. I'm changing my job. Well, it might be a lost opportunity, but then they may call you back in 6 months because you said you can bring the opportunity back forward again. So you're going to have to decide when to mark them lost and when to not, when to reset the wheel. There's no lost opportunity police, only you know the actual answers. You do have the ability to archive things. I don't like archive because that's you lying to yourself. Archive is, hey, I created a test opportunity, so I learned how to system, and then I'm going to archive and delete it because it wasn't real business. I didn't lose anything because I was playing around with the system. So lost is lost. Archive was a mistake. Archive was, I put them in as a buyer, but I was in such a rush. They were actually a listing and I had to change the opportunity. I had to create a new opportunity. So I archived the wrong one I created. Difference between lost and archive is what actually happened, and only you know the answer to that. So be real to yourself.
What actually happens if you're working with a client and you have the signed buyer broker agreement and they do decide to go somewhere else and work with someone else? I don't think I know what actually happens.
I'm going to keep it very simple for you. I'm going to tell you to talk to your broker. If that ever happens.
Oh, okay.
Because there's potentially an argument for procuring costs, and especially if you had a buyer broker agreement in place. And there are action steps that can happen, but I'm always going to defer you to your broker.
Okay.
I would, in a perfect world, I wish I could tell you that won't happen, but it has happened
Yeah.
to me.
I'm sure it'll happen.
And it just does. So that's what your broker is there to help you with. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Any questions on differentiating between archive or lost opportunities? That there's some ambiguity there, but you guys have to decide ultimately what happens for your business, right? Awesome. Okay. So now buyer profile, right? Which was, are they using my consumer app? I would see that here. And are they using the guide? Now, we hadn't actually talked about the guide on the buyer's app. That's kind of like a step 2 thing, but there is the ability inside the system, and I'm gonna stir this back to you guys just for the sake of time, back to your market center tech trainers, to make sure that your buyer guides are built out in a way that makes sense. They're basically a step through process that your consumers can know where they are in a transaction. That's different than the timelines. And if you actually log in your real estate app, not the command app, the real estate app, and you start playing around, you'll see there's a guide button on there. And it talks you through the processes. You can customize those, and that has to happen at the local level. And I want you to talk to your market center tech trainers about that. But that's what the buyer guide. And when they're using those things, this page will update. All right. Documents, I'm going to come back to in a minute. Notes are the ability for you to take notes around the transaction. And this gets used more if you're on a team, because you can tag people in the conversation. You can talk to your broker, you talk to your transaction coordinator. You can't talk to your consumer, but anybody involved on your team can communicate back and forth through notes for the opportunity. Timeline just shows you everything that's been done during the opportunity. Tasks that were involved, when was the pipe ride created, what happened, were they done, who did them. That's all tracks on the timeline. Again, if it's just you doing the transaction, it's all you, but this comes really valuable if there are other people involved, transaction coordinators, buyer's agents, who was touching this transaction, maybe something went awry or something happened. You always have this activity report on the back end to know what happened. Okay, notes, timeline. Offers and commissions. I'm going to jump here before we go to documents, okay? We don't have any offers yet for this opportunity. Remember, working with a buyer. Add new offer. So when you write an offer for a buyer, it'll show up as initial offer. Initial offer on 123 Main Street. Okay. Create offer. It's going to ask you, what did you write? So basically, you're putting information in here about the contract that you just wrote for your buyer. It can't pull, it doesn't read contracts yet. We're going in that direction. We're just not there, right? Well, in future versions, we'll be able to pull data from contracts from DocuSign. Can't do it yet, okay? 123 Main Street. When did I write the offer and when's the close date? Right? Remember, this is just an offer, so this isn't a ratified contract. Property address. I can either type in the address here or select from the KWLS. I like to choose them from the KWLS. And first, when you log in, it'll show your listings, or you can say show all listings. Now, understand that the KWLS is an international platform. So you see there's Louisville, Kentucky here. So you're going to search by property address. I'm just going to kind of, I don't know of any, I don't have any active listings. I'm just going to go, let's go to Fairfax. It shows up. All right, Fairfax Street, perfect. Sold, I don't want sold, I want active. All right, here we go. Fairfax Boat. I'm just going to say this was a property that I'm writing an offer, even though it says actually let's choose this one. So I'll select this property here. I'll say this is the property that I wrote an offer off for my consumer. You see that it defaults that address in here, okay? Then I go next to the parties button. My consumer's information shows in there. The my buyer's my information shows in as his representation, and the buyer's representation shows up. It does not pull the seller's information in yet. We don't have access. Not all that information is pliable for us. So what I would type in their name. Okay, Sally. All right. Now, obviously, you would never contact them, but you do need their name because their name goes on the contracts. Okay. My consumers qualified. Brokers, agents there, terms. Now, what did I write in my offer? Right. I don't remember what that price point on that house is. It doesn't really matter. So let's just say that, hey, I'm putting $75,000 in cash for that, or they are, and then we're going to finance 500. Okay. Oop, too many zeros. 575 is going to be the purchase price. Am I putting down a percentage as earnest money deposit, or am I putting down an extra dollar amount? No, 2,500. We don't use option fees. Don't worry about it. Termination notice. When can I terminate the contract? Maybe I don't have any contingencies. That's really what this is asking me. Is there a contingency here? Is it 10 days? Is it I gave them 3 days to offer? Is it 21 days because that's the finance contingency? Is it 10 days because that's the inspection contingency? When is the first time that your clients can terminate? Or some people put in when's the last time, last date that my client could terminate this contract. A lot of times it's going to revolve around the financial contingency date. So that's what it's looking for here. Remember, this is not filling out a contract. This is just you populating some information. Is the seller contributing? And you typically don't see that right now. The closing costs or service contracts, right? But maybe, hey, maybe I was getting $595 from the seller to pay for a home warranty. Now, this agent analysis, Right now, we're representing your buyer here. You could say, hey, we offered asking price. Right, that was a pro, it was a stronger offer. Cons, we asked for a longer close of escrow. Maybe we needed 90 days. Summary, strong offer might need to change COE to get ratified. These are just notes. Now be conscious of your notes because you might end up sharing these notes with your consumers. So don't write things in here that they ultimately could end up seeing, okay? Bad offer, low ball offer, my client's an idiot. Don't do those things. Save. Now you'll see you've got an offer here for that particular property, okay? Now, if that didn't get accepted, I could say that offer got rejected. Okay, if I say, oops, and actually we ratified that contract. Once I hit accept, okay, you see this managed commission pops up. That's where you submit the details to your market center about getting paid. Right, so what has to happen, just so you guys know, actually, let me ask this. How long after you ratify a contract do I have to submit documents and this commission agreement to my market center?
2 days? Is it 2 days?
It's 48 hours. Good answer. You get a root beer barrel. This is my 7th grade math teacher. Every time I get something right, he would throw out root beer barrels. Yes. You have 48 hours upon ratification to notify your market center through submitting documentation and a commission agreement for that particular property. And this is really important, not just for you to be in compliance, but your market center forecasts business. What do we have closing this month? If you don't submit your paperwork, you don't submit a commission agreement, and it gets to the end of the month and you had a closing yesterday, they don't necessarily know about it. So you have to let them know what's happening. And this is how that works. So you would go in here to the commission agreement, right? Sales price is there, contract. Oh, I'm missing a contract date. So I can edit that information, say, actually, we went under contract and it can't be in the future. So it would have to be today. So it changes. Okay. We went under contract this date, the close date is this day. If I had another agent that I was splitting the transaction with, I would add that co-broker. That's in-house co-broker. I'm sorry, not co-broker, sorry. Add another agent. That's in-house. We don't do co-brokes, right? You're not going to be putting the listing agent on the other side. Add another agent if you're splitting with them internally. And how's that being paid? How's that being applied? What's my cap look like, right? What's my royalty look like against my market center? Any deductions that I might have, I donate to KW Cares and Kids Cares. I have that set as a default, right? If you had any other deductions, okay, a lot of market centers have a B-poll tax. It varies by percentage by market center. So you might have to add a tax deduction for B-poll. Or maybe you paid to have a home warranty, so that's a concession. Okay, or you had a referral fee. Or maybe you got a bonus from the builder. They gave you $10,000 to bring a buyer in. Believe it or not, things happen like that when there's the right type of market. Right? Deduction, right, might be a B-poll tax. So there's all those different options for you to kind of build those out. Here's what I would recommend. When you start filling these things out, and you haven't done this yet, get with your PC coach, get with your MCA, get with your team leader to make sure that you put the appropriate information in here, okay? Now, once that's all done, you're going to hit submit, and that's going to go to your market center MCA. And they're going to see, and your compliance broker knows that, hey, there's a transaction process. I've got documents to review. The MCA knows things are going to happen. If you make a mistake, right, because we are human and we do make mistakes. If I put the wrong dollar amount on here, doesn't mean you're going to get paid wrong. Okay, that's not going to happen. Your MCA's got your back. You recognize you made a mistake and you submitted it, they may have to go into the back end and make a change. Don't cancel it. Don't terminate it. They can make changes on the back end. They can return it to you and you can make changes. Once it's been approved, it might have to be wiped out, started all over, and they'll walk you through that process. But don't ever worry about getting paid wrong, because your MCA will always make sure you're paid properly. That's what they do. And we know that we're human and we make errors. So that is commissions. That's submitting that to your market center, okay? Any questions on entering an offer, accepting or saying, yes, I ratified an offer, and then submitting that information to my market center? No, everything we're doing, you can play with, and I would go all the way up, but I would stop short of submitting an offer to my market center if it's not real. But you can create fake data and do all these things and get comfortable with it. You can walk through the deductions, find out if you have a local B-poll tax, right? We have them here in Falls Church, but I don't even know what it is off the top of my head right now. So that is offers and commissions. Okay, I do want to jump back to offers real quick. I think offers is incredibly valuable for two sides of the transaction. So, Melissa, you said you were taking a listing this week, or you're going active, right?
Yes.
Where's that listing?
Newport News.
Okay, Newport News. I don't know the market, Newport News, but we're still relatively hot in a lot of areas. Although we're talking about a shift, we're still seeing multiple offers on a lot of properties, right? Every offer I get on my listing, okay, every offer I get in my listing, I put into this offers section, add new offer. This is a buyer, but if it was a listing, I would list all my offers here. Okay. Just gonna put some junk in here real quick. Now let's just pretend that these are all offers on my listing. So I'm just putting in bogus data, even though I know I'm representing a seller here or a buyer. Okay, see how there are multiple offers here? Right. On the listing side, what I would be able to do is I'd be able to select these two offers, okay? And I would be able to create an export, like a comparative analysis that I can send to my consumer. See, I can send offer. I can send it to my consumer. On the listing side of things, I'd be able to create it'll give me like a checklist or spread down where it'll be side by side on those offers, price, offers, those notes that I put in there, right? Of what I thought about the offer, the pros and the cons. And it'll put the side by side in a checklist format that I can email to my consumer so they can compare the offers to each other. So that happens on the listing side. On the buyer side, people will say, hey, I just put in the ratified offer that I got done and nothing else. I beg to differ. I think when you're representing buyers, that you should keep track of every offer you write for them. For a couple of reasons. One, you should know how much time it's spent, what happened, and what worked and what didn't work for your particular consumer, in case any questions come up. Two, you may find yourself at a point in time working with an unrealistic buyer. Those things happen. They happen often, right? They don't always listen to your advice. It's ultimately their offer, not yours, but they don't always listen to your advice. So if I find myself running multiple offers for somebody and we're not winning, I like to track that in my system. So then I can have a conversation. Okay, look here, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. We've written 4 offers that didn't get done. Here's the 4 properties we wrote on. You offered 15% ask, below ask. You asked for seller contributions. You asked for this, this, and this. And here's the properties that got accepted. Over ask, at ask, no concessions, right? So if you had that type of information, you can have a conversation with them about real expectations, about how to write a winning offer. And sometimes they have to lose before they can win. And they have to recognize that you know what you're talking about. So I like to track buyers, and I will tell you that I'm probably the 1%. Most agents won't do it for the sake of time, but I do highly recommend that you track all of your offers in the system, whether they're for buyers or for sellers. How does that sit with you?
I agree.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So now the last tab we didn't cover yet was documents. Now, I want to be clear. Every market center has a compliance broker that reviews your contracts. Not every market center uses DocuSign yet. Not every agent has to use DocuSign. They pay for other systems. I don't understand it, but agents do what agents do. Our system plugs in and works with DocuSign. It does also work with .loop, but most people aren't using that anymore because they're our competition. Now, you are licensed in Virginia. You are licensed in, I'm saying in general terms. Some of you may be in Maryland, DC, Virginia, or just Virginia, or just DC, or just Maryland, or West Virginia, or Kentucky, or North Carolina, because you're in the border states, right? If you're licensed in those areas, and this is a point of fact that'll come into play tomorrow for DocuSign, if you're licensed in multiple areas, you will have access to the proper documentation because it is authenticated against your NRDS number. You remember on Monday, I told you for Friday's class, you all have to have your DocuSign accounts configured and connected. You guys remember that? So you need to go back and check. And if it's not, you need to get with the market center, make sure DocuSign is connected to your system if that's something that your market center utilizes, so we can train you on it. Now, once you have an account, you're going to put your NRDS number, which is provided you by NAR. Okay. If you're in multiple states, I'm licensed in Virginia. If I'm licensed in Maryland, I have a license in Maryland through reciprocity. I have the ability to write contracts in Maryland. Those things are true. However, I also have to belong to the Maryland Board of Realtors, MAR, or I have to belong to GCAR in order to legally use their documents, their contracts. So if I'm licensed in another state, you have to belong to that additional board as a secondary member. If you don't, you won't have access to the proper contract documents. Get those calls all the time. Dave, I'm licensed in DC too. I don't see the ability for me to use those contracts. And my question always is, great, what did you join GCAR? No, you have to join GCAR. All right, so is there anybody here that would fall into the categories of having or being licensed in multiple states? Because if not, then none of that really matters yet. But you might be, right? If you're in Northern Virginia, I highly encourage you to be licensed in DC and or Maryland. But just so you know, there's a cost of doing business, and that cost is you have to belong to the secondary, to those boards as a secondary member to have access to all the documents you might need. We good? Derek, Derek, you're sleeping over there.
I have DC and Maryland,
Okay.
and I should have Virginia by the end of the month.
Okay. So you have DC and Maryland. So what is your primary?
Maryland.
Maryland. So, okay. So you belong to MAR. Is that?
Yes.
Right?
MAR and SMART.
Smart. So to write contracts in DC, you also have to be a secondary member on GCAR. And if you're going to get licensed in Virginia, you're also going to have to join either NDAR or DAR.
Understood. I have my GCAR and all that.
Okay. It's always been the law, but there was always workarounds, and agents, we were all about trying to save them money. We can't do it anymore. And DocuSign authenticates you against your NRDS number. And they look at that number and they compare that to the roster of the boards. And that's how you have access to the documents that you need. So if you're ever missing documents and you're in multiple states, that's going to be why. And I'm always going to tell you to go back and talk to your broker so they can help you set things up properly. Sound good? Awesome. All right. So now we come back to this screen. So my screen is going to look different than yours, right? Because you're not in my market center. Because the compliance broker ultimately builds the list, the checklist of documents, right? So I can tell them, hey, am I working Virginia, Maryland, or DC? Not all market centers are licensed in all those areas. So you might just see Virginia, okay? But I had the ability, if I were licensed, to choose, okay? So I'm going to choose Virginia. Then I'll see 3 folders. There's a consultation folder. These are all the documents that I need to have signed and uploaded for broker review under the consultation phase, which is basically going under contract for a buyer, as far as representing a buyer. Under contract is the things that I need to be under contract. ratified contract, tax records, proof of funds, E&D, whatever. And you'll see some things are marked required, some things are marked conditional, some things are marked optional. Right? That depends on what document you're using and where you are in the transaction. And then obviously there's a closed section. So I have to have my walkthrough, I've got to have my settlement sheet. If there was a bank credit letter or anything like that, or referral, those are all loaded here. Now, tomorrow what I'm going to show you is that you can see that those documents, because I see DocuSign is synced here, those documents will come right automatically over from DocuSign to here, because I can go into my room and choose them and add them to the folder. If I'm not using DocuSign, I can go manually upload them from my computer. I think most people are used to that. You get an email transaction, you download it, you put it in a file on your desktop, and you load it into some system. So you can do that. Okay. DocuSign is the best and most streamlined way to, because I don't have to do any of that. I'll go into DocuSign, go to my room, I'll pull my documents. They'll all be right here. Okay. So that's how that happens. Now I'm going to tell you this now, and we'll redo it again tomorrow. The very first time you create an opportunity and you need to write contracts, right? So under Cultivate, you're not going to have contracts. Under Appointment, you might start writing contracts if you're going to go meet somebody for a listing appointment, right? Under Active, you're absolutely going to have contracts at some point. But the moment you're going to write a contract document, buyer broker agreement or list or whatever, you're going to have to access DocuSign. So you have to have a contact. That contact has to have an opportunity. You go into the documents portion of the opportunity, which is where we are now, yes. And on the upper right-hand side, what you see right here is Go To Transaction. And when I click Go To Transaction, it's going to ask me to log into my DocuSign account. So that's why I told you tomorrow you have to make sure your DocuSign account is connected. And then it's going to ask me to log into DocuSign, and it's going to go jump into my room. Now, I'm not going to worry about that right now, but what I want to highlight is this. The first time you're going to work on a contract for a consumer, buy or sell, you have to click that Go To Transaction, because what that does is it creates a room inside of DocuSign where your documents are going to live. Okay. Now, in the future, if working in that for that transaction for this type Connor, I don't have to go to the transaction this way every time. I can go directly into DocuSign and work on contracts. I don't even have to go into Command at all. I can log in directly to DocuSign and work on those contract docs for this transaction. It's a speed of play. But the very first time I work on documents, I have to click that Start Transaction, because if you don't, and then you go into DocuSign directly, and I create a room in DocuSign directly, I can't reverse connect it back to Command. I could download it, I could go in, I could create an opportunity, and go to documents, I could download and upload, but that sync won't work. So it's another important fact. The first time you go into work on documents, go through Command, make sure everything's set up, Start Transaction. It allows you to log in your DocuSign room. It'll pull all those details, this is why it's nice, right? So if you recall, when I went into that opportunity and you saw that sync information, that data pulls directly into the room. That's why you want to have all that data. So the buyer's information, the seller's information, your information, closing dates, all that property address, that'll all pull into the contract. That's why you want that sync to happen. Okay, go ahead, Luke.
So my question is then, where do we get the contracts from? And then how do we even set it up so that it would pull directly into those contracts?
That's tomorrow.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
All your contracts live in DocuSign. That's the whole purpose of building to where we're going. DocuSign is your digital library for all your documents. Your buyer broker agreement, your listing agreement, everything lives inside of DocuSign. If your market center uses it. I know some market centers use Authentisign, some I think still use Dotloop. So you're going to check, see what your market center utilizes. But we coach tomorrow, we talk about DocuSign. I'm going to walk you through tomorrow, accessing documents, sharing documents for signatures, syncing them back to Command for rooms, sending for buyer broker approval, how to map things back to the room. We're going to do all that tomorrow. Today, it was just creating the opportunity, submitting commissions, but understanding that that connection has to happen first for every opportunity you create. If you're going to write a contract or a buyer broker agreement the first time, you got to access it directly from Command. That's important.
Just a quick question. After we went into opportunity, how do we get to the page? What was the next?
I'm sorry.
The page that we're on now, after we went into opportunities, how do we get to this page? What was the next click to get us to the page that we see on your screen, right?
This is just the details section, right? So either you're probably going to access it from the contact card, right? So if I'm on that
Yeah.
transactional contact card
Mm-hmm.
for the contact, under opportunities for the contact,
Right, go ahead.
I am. It's going slow. So I'll just go back to Connor. Right, so here's his contact card, right? And at the top, I'm under opportunities.
Yep.
If I click on the opportunity here, it takes me directly to the details page. If I'm on the opportunities dashboard, right, that listing buyer, where I see cultivate appointment under contract.
Yeah.
If I'm on that page and I want to go to a transaction, all right, so I'll come all the way back out here instead of from the contact card, right? We see this here. And I go to active buyers. I'll see all my active buyers that I have. And if I click on any one of those, just click on their name. It opens up the details page. So you can go either way with it.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions on it? There's a lot here. There's a lot that has to be done right because you want to get paid properly. So I do recommend that you create some bogus opportunities and play around with these things. All right, I do highly recommend it. Most market centers have some sort of contracts class that you guys do. I don't know how they all do them. I know how we do them with KW United, and how I recommend it is that if you're writing dummy contracts, write your dummy contracts in Command, write your dummy contracts through DocuSign. Practice, right, before you get to it. Because this is what's going to happen. If you get to a point where you need to do something and you haven't practiced or done it, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to panic. And to be told, it's probably going to be a point in time today where it might be hard to get somebody online to give you help. Right? When you're writing contracts, it's a lot of times it's later at night or it's over the weekends. And if you don't have an assigned PC coach or mentor, you might have trouble getting hold of somebody. That's just realistic nature. So if you know you're going to write a contract and you're brand new at it, make sure you have somebody lined up and say, hey, wherever market center you're in, say, hey, I'm going to be writing a contract this weekend. Are you available to walk me through it? Right? That would be for your mentor, your PC coach. Be ready. And again, I'm going to highly encourage you to have it not only come to these classes, but written and practice some things so you know what you're doing. So when you're asking questions, you're not starting from ground zero. Does that make sense? You got to be proactive. You're business owners, right? Think ahead. Don't wait to react. Don't wait to react, right? Be proactive in your business so things, happen in appropriate time, because you'll get to that time crunch and you'll feel it and you'll start to panic. And I don't want you to go through that. I see it happen all the time. All right, it's 10:30. Actually, we're running a little bit ahead of schedule, so we're done. So if you have questions, whether it's about this subject or anything else we went over this week, I'll be more than happy to answer it. But the most important thing from today is, remember, when I email you at the end of the day, you're going to get the checklist. So you're going to want to start building out your checklists and your stages. And you absolutely want to go into your account and make sure that your DocuSign is connected. And if you're not sure if it is connected or not, okay, here's where you can check. Go to your name at the top of the page. Go down to your settings. Come on, load up for me. And then on the settings page, you're going to see DocuSign listed. If it says connect, that means you're not connected. Get with your Market Center Tech Trainer, get with your MCA, get with your team leader, get with your ASC, get your DFI, and get your account connected. If you use DocuSign in your Market Center, if you don't know, you got to go ask, because I don't know what Market Centers do and do not use them. Okay? Or have that full rostered list. Most of them do. But you have to go in here and you'll see DocuSign listed, and it'll either say connected or connect account. Okay? I see a hand raised. Marquita.
I'm sorry about that. So I was trying to go back on to check for the recorded videos from Monday. And when I go on the YouTube channel, it's only showing from last month. So
Okay.
where do I go?
We just might not have to process them all. They take time. I'll
Oh,
go back.
okay.
I have my assistant loads everything. It's a busy week for reporting, but I'll go back and see where we are. We're posting those reports or posting the recordings. Now, at the same time, you can always watch last month. We cover mostly the same material.
Okay. All right. I have another question, but let me ponder it. I'll be right back.
All right, ponder your question. Anybody else have a outstanding question? Because all questions are outstanding. Luke, you look like you want to ask a question.
Yeah, I was gonna ask one real quick. Just in terms of building a database,
Mhm.
is our database at all like shared within the Keller Williams like group at all? Okay, so
Good.
then our database by uploading it is still just like the people's information is protected.
Oh yeah, and it's a great question. It's your database to utilize and build out. And obviously it's on a server farm somewhere, but nobody at the Market Center has access to your database. That's why everything's password protected. We don't sell your data. And that's the most important thing to remember day one. Why KW built their own platform was so that your data was not at risk of third-party predators, because that's what they were accessed. So yes, so you have nothing to concern about for your data in your system.
Okay, great, thanks.
Let me think. When you guys went over contacts on Tuesday, did they show you how to get all your Facebook contacts out?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. That's for a lot of people. It's true. They're like, I don't know what to do. Think about your phone, right? So you can connect. You can download with SA Lite. There's an API integration through Command. You can go back to your Microsoft Tech Trainer. You can get your Google contacts. They can zap directly. You can get those things from Facebook. Just get as much people in your world into your database as possible, and just start talking to people. Marquita, did you figure out that other question?
I did. So to start, I just got all of my passwords through Scott Leroy.
Yeah.
He's getting all the passwords and my app link and things like that. Do I just start by entering the contacts into Command from my phone? Or is there an easier way that I can do that without individually?
That's what we were just talking about, right? So you got to get your data's got to come from somewhere. If it's from your phone, you could, yes, you could absolutely use the Google Contacts integration, which I would tell you to go talk to your Microsoft Tech Trainer. Which office are you with?
Coastal Virginia and Chesapeake.
Chesapeake. So that's Jerry Trickey.
Yes.
So get with Jerry, and he's
Okay.
great at that about syncing your data.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He'll get all that zapped instantaneously for you.
Okay. Good deal. Thank you.
Absolutely. Be organized with your database, right, guys? Remember, if you sync and zap things from one location to another, you got to understand what's coming in, right? Is there garbage in your Google contacts? Is there garbage on Facebook? Is there garbage in these other things? Is it incomplete? Garbage isn't the right term. How are you going to structure? How are you going to organize? So put some thought and strategy around it versus just zapping data in. Because once you've brought it in, cleaning it up becomes a little bit challenging. So I'd rather you spend some more time up front uploading it with the right and as much robust information as you can. All right. Any other questions before we drop for today? You're going to get 25 minutes back. How about that?
You mentioned something about tags. Was that something else you were going to do today, or was that tomorrow? You mentioned something about tags. Is that something you were going to do today or tomorrow?
Something about what?
Tags.
Tags we did on Tuesday.
Okay, now I thought you mentioned something earlier that you said we were going to do something else with.
Oh, I said I'll send you a list of tags, but if you were you on the class on Tuesday?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. All right, I'll show it to you. That's okay. So tags, and I'll give you a list, right? That'll be the part of the list that I send you with the checklist. You
Okay,
can
great.
add tags in the system. So there are contact tags and there are opportunity tags. So under settings, okay, go to your name, go down to settings, go to command settings, opportunity settings. There are opportunity tags. So you can build out your tags here. Are they cash? Are they FHA? Are they VA? Right? Who is the lender? I always say who's the lender, but who's your lending company? Who's your title company? Is it a referral? Right? You build these tags here under opportunity tags so you can tag your opportunities, just like you do under contact tags and have tags for your contacts. They're two different structures because they do two different things, but I do think it's important to have organization around your database and build those things out. And what I will send you today is a list of tags that you'll be able to build. So you literally go new tag, create new tag, type the name in here, give it a color and click create. And then it'll be there for you to add to every opportunity.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Good question.
Can I create tags before I add contacts?
I highly recommend that you do.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether they're daily, so you think through your world. People always say, what are tags? Think about all the people in your world and what do they have in common with you or each other in your database. So perfect. So one thing is just organization. We use the daily twos for tags, right? Which is you just filtering out your database. And I'll show you an example here. Filtering out your database, right? By first and last names of the alphabet. So you see like B and E, right? Those are just two letters of the alphabet, A and W. So I have 13 different tags that allows me to organize my database by people's last names, because every 13 weeks I can take my sphere and call through on a quarterly call plan. Or if you're a Buffini person, you might have A's, B's, and C contacts, right? You'll see here there are system tags that are already there: agent, allied resources, bought, sold, vendor, right? Those are things that are there. Agent. Other things that I use are HOA communities, right? My farm areas. What do these people have in common? I've got two boys that play sports. So I've got hockey. I've got high school hockey. I've got soccer. I've got little league, right? I've got church. I got PTO. I've got where I went to college and where I went to high school, previous places of employment. I tag people what relationships that they have with me. So if you build up that tag list first, it's good structure and organization for you, because then you can tag the people on your list so that when you import them, you can tag them on the import without having to go back and retag them after they're in your database. Good question. Who else has a question? All right, then we are done for today. Scotty is going to be leading the call for tomorrow. She's out of our Leesburg Market Center, just recently DocuSign certified from KWRI. So that will be a great class for you guys. But remember, show up and make sure your DocuSign account is synced if you guys use it. All right, I hope you all are well. I'll go back and see where we are and load in those videos so we can get them to the YouTube channel. Unfortunately, they do take a little bit of time sometimes. All right, everybody, you all have a great day.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Sell something.